Oh, it tells me now I'm being recorded. Got it.
I was like, is that on my side or your side? Oh, hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Hi.
Hi.
I'm
How's it going?
good. Pretty good. I've
Yeah.
been trying to figure out my summer plans, so that's been time consuming, but it's fun to think about summer being here.
I know, right?
So that's good. Yeah.
So last
How are
weekend,
you doing?
Jessica came. Good, but I
Oh,
want to tell everybody that last weekend, Jessica
yeah.
and her daughter came over to visit us and spent the weekend, and it was so fun. We had such a good
Yes.
time. We had grand plans to like record episodes, and we did not do
We had
any work.
we had such a good time we forgot to do a podcast episode
I
together.
know. We were like, oh, we should know. And you're getting ready to leave. And but it was so awesome to like get together and hang out. It'd been a
Hmm.
while. So
Yeah, it had been. It was so good to hang out for a couple days and hopefully make it back out there soon again and stay
yeah,
maybe a little bit longer.
totally. It was
You
fun.
guys are great hosts.
Oh, thank you. It was fun.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
was
it
fun.
was.
We're
You guys
working
have
on
a great place too. I like it.
yeah, we like it. We have a good yard. So
You do. It was so nice to just sit outside. Like if I had a place like that where I would be sitting out like every time there's a nice day, I'd just be sitting out there.
well, you
So
left just in
wonderful.
time because it was 100 degrees the last few days. It was miserable. It was so way too hot for me. Way too
Yeah.
hot.
Sounds fantastic.
Yeah, and Kellen's like, we don't have air conditioning in this house. We have like one of these little air conditioners that is like a freestanding air conditioner in the house, but it doesn't get everywhere. So the kids' bedrooms were
Mhm.
hot and they couldn't sleep and everything. So it
Yeah.
was
I mean, you
days.
guys do have that basement though. That stays pretty cool down there. I would
Oh
just
yeah, the
camp out
basement.
down there.
Yeah, totally. The basement stays really cool, which is nice. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
no. So you're working on summer plans. I'm just working on what I'm doing after
Hmm.
next week. I'm usually a planner, and this summer, I don't know. I think because we're just getting into our first summer here in our house and in the area, like being settled, we haven't really like done much just trying to get kids into activities for them to make friends and stuff like that because that's still been difficult is meeting people in a new place. I never realized how hard it would be to make friends like as you get older, right? It's like meeting other moms or
Yeah.
Audrey's homeschooled, so trying to find other homeschool people or groups and that sort of thing has been difficult. So hopefully getting them into sports and activities will be a good way for us to meet some people. But
There you
yeah,
go. Yeah, no, that's legit. It's definitely hard making friends as an adult. I find it's kind of like a weird form of dating.
right? It
Like
totally is. Oh my gosh, it really is.
yeah,
Yeah.
like you like hang out a couple times or something and then it's like you don't. And they
Mhm.
ghost you and it's weird and
I did meet one mom friend who we've gotten together a few times and we'll continue to get together because I we are very similar. And I was like, oh, it's so nice to talk to by somebody who like believes like I do, who thinks like I do, and lives kind of similar to how
awesome.
we live. So that's been really, really good. So we've at least met one person here with kids similar ages as my kids. So but yeah, so
Mhm.
let's grab and jump into
Awesome.
the episode, shall we?
Yeah. Well, first, did you have anything you wanted to share with our listeners at all?
Just that you came and visited. That was all I wanted to share. What do you want to share? I was so excited. It was awesome. It was our just so you know,
um,
our first overnight guest. So besides, well, my in-laws had been here overnight once, but she was our first overnight friend guest. So that's all I wanted
yeah.
to share. What do you want to share?
Um, I kind of just want to say thank you to our listeners who have been hanging out with us,
Heck yeah.
trying to grow an audience and stuff. And I appreciate everybody that's been tuning in and hanging out with us. And, just if you're enjoying everything, it really does help if you can subscribe and share with other people. But outside of that, like I'm just glad that there's someone listening to us. It's
I
really
know.
cool.
It is cool. And I've had some people who have shared us, um, like on their Facebook pages or on their Instagram stories. And, I get text messages from friends of ours who are like, I love this. And people requesting episodes. So we're writing all that stuff down so that we can talk about things that people are interested in. And and whatnot. So we super, super, super appreciate all the support that everybody's given us and how excited everybody's been for us. So yeah, like Jessica said, subscribe, share, leave us a review, or give us a 5-star rating is super helpful.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Oh, and then I'm looking at myself in the video and I'm like, I'm wearing my sweatshirt that Tiffany got me. My birthday gift. We got matching sweatshirts that says Outsider,
Yeah,
but I love it. It's super cozy.
it is. I should have put mine on.
Yeah.
Matching
Could have been
sweatshirts.
twinsies.
I know, right? It's like a double entendre. Is that what it's called? Double meaning?
Yeah.
Kind of like a double meaning with the sweatshirt. For us,
Yeah,
at least.
a little bit. Outsider.
Yeah. For us, at least. Especially after our last episode that we recorded.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah. Definitely aligned.
Yes.
Oh, funny.
All right. So today we wanted to talk. I think we're going to title this episode. It's Not Normal. And what we're going to talk about is things that we, especially as Americans, think are normal as far as how our bodies behave and react to things that we think as just normal, but it's actually not normal. But it's become just normal in our society based on a bunch of different factors. So we're going to talk about some of those different things that either we have gone through ourselves, or we know people who have gone through or are going through, and be like, no, that is not normal. That is not normal to feel that way or whatnot. So
yeah, there's a lot. I mean, and I think, everybody kind of brushes things off as normal. I mean, I'm definitely guilty of this, or just not being, just generally brushing things off like it's not too concerning or anything. But a lot of things that we have deemed as normal are only deemed normal because it's so common. And that's kind of scary that our population is so unhealthy that all these things that should not be considered normal are being normalized.
Right. And it's not that they're normal. It's just that they're, like you said, they're common. They are not normal in any way, shape, or form. Things and the ways that a lot of us feel or people feel is not, we think it as normal, but it's not. It's just so common, like you said, that we've just accepted it instead of trying to be like, no, this isn't how I should feel, or this shouldn't be considered normal. People are just like, well, I just accept it and that's just how it is. And no, that's not okay. We can't just accept crappy health, right?
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is I think there's this really easy sort of out, especially with our medical paradigm, of just chopping it up to being your bad genes. And that's such a load of crap.
It is such a load of crap. There's so few things that are genetic.
I mean, your gene, I think it's described as like your gene, is it like your genes are the gun and your environment, it pulls the trigger or something like that? A lot of these things that we say are just genetic, it's like, yeah, your genes are predisposed to these things. Like you kind of got certain things that you're likely to lean towards if you are having health issues. But outside of that, it's the environment. You have complete control over these things.
Absolutely.
You're not destined to be overweight. You're not destined to have allergies. You have total control over these things.
Yep. Agree. I think that gets back to, I try to be honest with myself and with other people too. I think that gets back to the whole mindset that the allopathic medical industry has created, where this just give me a pill to fix everything and give me a subscription for all of these issues that I have. And it's made people lazy when it comes to their health, right?
Yeah.
Like people are just like, just give me a pill. I just want a subscription for this instead of, that's how the medical, allopathic medicine is taught, right? In medical school.
Yeah.
Naturopathic and homeopathic medicine is obviously different. Yeah, it's symptom-based. You're just covering up and you're just treating a symptom instead of getting to the root cause of, okay, you have this symptom, you have headaches. What is causing those headaches, right? Instead of giving you, I don't even know. I know there's prescription headache medicines out there. I don't know what any of them are. But instead of just giving them a prescription and treating the headaches, they're okay, what is causing this headache? It's not just, that's not normal, right? Chronic headaches, chronic migraines are not normal. Let's
Yeah.
start with
And
that.
you're,
I feel like that's such a common one, especially for women.
oh yeah.
There's
There,
so many things that could be causing it, like so many.
for sure. And that's the thing, like, I kind of, I mentioned in a couple episodes ago, I started paying attention to, started following, Dr. Tommy John.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like, he like beats this dead horse like all day long. But
So
all these symptoms, all these things you're feeling, it's your body's way of communicating something. It is, even being sick, like, well, I won't get into that. I was going to say being sick, the symptoms that that's your body dealing with something, right?
right. Older or something.
It's not, I would say the illness is not the thing, right? Like, or the symptoms are not the thing. That's your body like purging stuff.
Right.
So we have sort of this really wrong outlook on that. But as far as things that we consider normal that aren't, like, that is your body saying something's out of whack and it's trying to deal with it. So it's, you feel these things because your body is dealing with something and trying to adapt or whatever it needs to do to be able to continue to perform the way it's trying to, right? So something's wrong, and you got to figure out, you got to, like you said, get to the root of that. Like, what is it? And I think you can go really shallow on this and miss the mark. Like, you can say, I have a headache because I haven't drank enough water, but like, yeah, maybe, but also like, that can like go further. Like, you can hit the surface of things like, I'm trying to think of a good example. Let's say like PMS, right? Like, or heavy periods or cramps or whatever. And you can say like, it's because I ate this, or God, I'm trying to think of a good example. But like, almost every time you just hit the surface of it, right? And then you just go, but what causes that? Okay, but what causes that? And you got to really dig into it.
You do,
To really
because like
figure
you
out.
said, well, like you say with the headaches, right? I think most people, I would say the majority of the time somebody gets a headache, they're like, oh, I probably have a headache because I'm not drinking enough water. I would say that that's a huge majority. But like you said, okay, so let's say it is, right? Let's say you're like, okay, I'm going to drink more water to cure my headache. And you drink more water and it doesn't go away. People will just be like, oh man, I don't know. And then they just pop a pill, Tylenol or ibuprofen or whatever to make it go away. Right.
Exactly.
Instead of saying, okay, it wasn't the water. I wasn't dehydrated in any way. I wonder what else it could be. I had a headache last week and I don't get headaches anymore. I used to get them all the time. I figured out it was my Apple Watch actually causing the headaches. So I gave up. It was all that EMF exposure or whatever, to my Apple Watch, because I wore it constantly all day, every day. And I started getting these headaches and I couldn't figure out why. Once I stopped wearing it, they went away.
So crazy.
And so last week I had a headache because I don't ever get them anymore. And I was like, So I was really thinking hard about what could be causing this headache. Did I eat something different? Did I sleep different? Like, what did I do? So really trying to dig into what did I change in my routine, or what I ate, or what I was exposed to. Did we go somewhere? Did I do something with, like, was I on the computer a long time and my eyes, were all the blue light was bugging my eyes and causing a headache? I was really trying to dig into what could be causing that very mild headache that I had, instead of just being like, oh, I'm probably just dehydrated and popping a Tylenol for it or something. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that that's where we have failed people as a society, is that we are not taught how to dig into what could be causing the root cause of these issues that we have. Right.
Because you really shouldn't be experiencing these things. If you're, at optimal health, which nobody is in this world, it's impossible, with the level of toxins in our environment and things like that. But, if you are doing a really good job of taking care of yourself, you will find that like almost all this stuff kind of goes away. But like, getting to optimal, you have to, like, all of these things matter. Yeah. So I think of, like, for me, I remember in my NTA class, I had one of my things that I was trying to and still continue to work on is figuring out why I have like skin breakouts. And so like I'd get acne on, it's usually like it follows my cycle a bit, so it's clearly kind of hormonal. But
Right.
but why? Like again, we've chopped up acne to being, oh, it's just hormonal. Okay, but realistically, if you're at optimal health, like you wouldn't have acne even in hormonal phases,
Right.
because there's something not quite right there, and it's your body is releasing something. It all kind of comes down, a lot of it comes down to toxins. So
Yeah.
your body's purging through your skin, it's getting rid of some toxins through your skin. um and so, if finally I've kind of figured out that probably a huge contributor, if not the contributor to my skin issues, was my IUD, right? So like figuring those things out and realizing, like, I knew having acne was not normal, but I couldn't figure out what it was, you
Yeah.
know?
Well,
And
when you say toxins, you're not just talking like environmental toxins. You're talking toxins from food, different kinds of foods that are toxic to the body, like seed oils and canola oil and
oh yeah,
vegetable oils and all of those things that we get exposed to, our food and our environment. So it's not just purely environmental toxins. There's so many different ways that we're exposed to toxins that we don't even think about.
yep. I mean, the air we breathe anymore is
Yeah.
toxic.
Yeah.
It's pretty much unavoidable anymore in our modern world, which is really unfortunate and frustrating.
Mhm.
But the more you can minimize it, like the better.
Yeah.
Um, as far as controlling toxins, or the sort of the just really quickly, I'll brush over with toxins, and the way to think, it can even just be it can be internal too. You can create your own toxins within your body as it's clearing things out. And then also maybe you have hormone imbalances from stress and things like that. And so you have too much like cortisol, and eventually your body has to clear that out, right? Um, but basically your body, the way you can think of it like a bucket, and your body can only handle so much. Like that bucket can only hold so much water, right? And once you go over that toxic load that you can handle,
Mhm.
then it starts to overflow. And that's when you have like probably some sort of a huge health crisis. But
Right.
even as it's just starting to overflow, you're going to have some of these symptoms show up.
And I think it leads back to your point of saying like all of these things that are these symptoms that our body is showing, right? A headache or a breakout on our skin or a gut issue. All of these things are our body's warning signals to us saying, hey, there is something going on. And
Mhm.
that's what we need to get to, is what is going on? What is causing that? Instead of
Mhm.
just giving somebody a drug to cover it up so that they don't have those symptoms anymore, you want to get to what is causing those issues, right? So it's like your bucket
Yeah.
example is just spilling over and your body's going, warning, warning, warning. We
Mhm.
have this major issue going on that we need help with, and this is how we're showing it to you and telling you.
Mhm.
But people don't, I think we aren't taught. I've never said I'm trying not to say people don't, because I don't blame anybody. We're just not
Mm-mm.
taught how to address our issues. We're just taught to cover
Yeah,
them up.
no, I mean, this will sound bad, but it's ignorance. And I don't mean that in a negative way, like you're
Yeah.
stupid.
Yep.
It's just you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
Um,
We
and
used
so
to be
it's
there, like we said on our last episode. We used
sure,
to be there. We
for sure. And I
totally
know
were.
I'm ignorant about a lot more things still, every day I'm learning something new. But that's why we're doing this, we want to help people open up their eyes to some of these things. Because I've been in this world for this like wellness world for about 10 years now. So none of this stuff is really that surprising to me. I know that these things aren't normal, but I realize that prior to that, and even still, like there are probably some things I do brush off as normal. I brushed off my hair loss as normal, or
Right.
well, or I thought maybe it was just not really as excessive as it might seem. Anyways, you brush these kind of things off, but especially before getting into this wellness world, things like, I think one of the ones that really stands out to me is people, in me as well, brushing off low energy as normal,
Mm-hmm.
or even like mild anxiety or depression
Yeah.
as normal, or because everybody experiences it, it's like you just like, that's just how things are for you. You're going to have to accept that, or you can take a medication to maybe alleviate it.
Right.
Or drink some coffee, to alleviate the energy, give you that energy boost. But I can tell you, I don't drink coffee anymore. And I have like the best energy I've ever had in my life, as far as like not needing to, like, not crashing when I'm in the car, or like, as far as like, when you're a passenger, countless pictures of me just, head back, mouth open, like snoozing in the car, because anytime I was in the car, I'd fall asleep. I mean, I was falling asleep in concerts, I was falling asleep in movies, I was falling asleep, like, and I just thought that I'm like, maybe I got narcolepsy or something. I don't know, like, but I know now, like, my diet and my lifestyle had such a huge impact, and I just wasn't making the connection.
And I think that that's another common one, like you just said, talking about what's not normal, like being really exhausted every day in the afternoon. Maybe if you're somebody who wakes up super, super early, right? And you're not getting enough sleep, right? Like that could be a
Yeah.
cause of your afternoon, exhaustion, is you're going to bed late and you're waking up early. But it could also be something else, right? It's not normal to have that afternoon slump and feel off. It could be that you're drinking too much coffee throughout the day. So you're stimulating yourself so heavily in the morning that your body is like trying to balance itself out in the afternoon. It could be something like that. It could be, oh gosh, what's another common one for afternoon slump? Gut. I mean,
Also,
gut.
the food coma.
Food coma. Yeah.
People, it seems like everybody's like, oh, food coma, after lunch, we just all get tired. And it's like, what did you eat? Because what you eat should not be making you tired.
It's like
that's
Thanksgiving,
a
right?
blood sugar issue right there.
It is a blood sugar issue. Well, and it goes back to like the Thanksgiving analogy where people try to blame the tryptophan and the turkey. It's like, don't blame the turkey for what the bread and the mashed potatoes did, right?
Yep. No, it is not the turkey's fault. I promise you. I promise you, it is not the turkey's fault.
Yep, you're not feeling that tired after that Thanksgiving meal from the turkey.
Poor turkey.
I know. But yeah, it goes back to that, like, what are you eating? If you're eating like a lunch that's heavy in carbs, like refined carbs, like pastas or breads or that sort of thing, like, yeah, you're going to have a glucose spike, and then you're going to come down off of that because you're just filling your body up with glucose and
here, let me tell you a little something. You don't have to feel that way. Like, it's
not
like
normal. You don't have to feel that. You don't have to be tired every afternoon. I promise.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember in my old office there, we had someone that was a little bit newer when I was there, and I had to train her one day, and literally she was nodding off while I'm like talking to her. Granted, it's not the most exciting thing to talk about public procurement, but like, I'm seriously sitting right next to you and you're like nodding off asleep while I'm telling you how to do something. It's like, that's a bad sign, and we just chop it up to food coma. It's all okay, we're supposed to get tired after we eat food. No, you're not. Like, but that's so common.
Yeah. What else is another one that's normal, or that people say is normal, or
it's been normalized? Oh man,
there's the headaches is a huge one. I think the afternoon slump is a huge one.
Digestive issues. I mean, even things. I mean, bloating, burping, gas, all those things. I think people just think that, that's just, it might be embarrassing or, kind of rude to burp or whatever, but those are digestive issues, and that's not normal. Reflux is a really common, reflux heartburn is something that's really, really common now. And unfortunately, in the allopathic medical world, they generally will diagnose that as low stomach too much stomach acid.
Yeah.
And they'll give you antacids. Well, guess what? It's actually going to make shit worse. Because honestly, most of the time, I would say, most of the time in those cases, like, it's actually too low of stomach acid.
Yes, absolutely.
The food's not getting broken down correct, like properly in the stomach, and it's actually just kind of putrefying in your stomach and coming back up. And in the NTA, the way they described it was if you took a bunch of food and stuck it into a blender and blended it up and just left it on the counter for like a day, what's going to happen to that? It's going to be nasty, and it's going to putrefy, and it's going to start bubbling, and it's going to start doing all this crazy like science experiment stuff. And that's basically what's happening in your stomach if you don't have enough stomach acid. Our stomachs are meant to be like almost pure acid when you eat something, so that it completely breaks down those proteins and stuff.
Yeah, I think our stomach acid is like less than 3. So like you have a blood pH level, right? And your blood pH level 7 is like neutral. And they say you want to be slightly alkaline in your blood pH, so like 7.35 to 7.45. You want to be slightly alkaline. So anything higher than 7 is alkaline, anything lower than 7 is acidic. And like Jessica said, you want our stomachs to be acidic, so they break down that food. So I think it's below 3 is what we want our stomach acidity to be.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly what it is, but yeah,
acids, and they just give you antacids and that kind of thing, you're likely making your issue worse, which is why people become dependent on them.
Yeah. Well, so what happens is you might have a little like either low acidity or not enough stomach acid. So it just kind of breaks it. It makes it sort of acidic in your stomach. And then as it putrefies, it comes back up, it burns, right? So when you take those antacids, it is going to give you some relief because it is going to neutralize that acid that's coming back up as reflux, but it's not breaking the food down.
Right.
And so there's a lot of things that come after that. Like you're not breaking down the food enough, so you're going to end up with deficiencies. One of those deficiencies is zinc is like a really big one. And zinc is actually a cofactor for creating stomach acid. So now you're just, it's making things even worse and worse and worse. Like it's a compounded effect, right?
And it's not allowing your body to absorb, like you said, absorb the minerals and the nutrients that are in the food, the good food that you're eating, right? So your body's not absorbing what it needs to.
And then, that turns into a whole other host of issues as you go down the line as far as your digestion, but also even with those deficiencies and stuff, you end up that can be the cause of your anxiety and depression because you now have deficiencies and you're not getting the nutrients you need for different cofactors for creating your neurotransmitters for antidepressant,
right,
your serotonin and things like that, so now you have like anxiety and stuff, but on top of that you got your digestive issues. So I guarantee if you have anxiety and depression, you probably have some sort of digestive issues,
or you on birth control,
or if you, I should say, if you have digestive issues,
like we talked about.
Yeah. And then, as you go down the line of digestion, let's say you have low stomach acid or just general, like you go down the line and you have dysbiosis in your gut or whatever, that's where you end up with things like food allergies and stuff, because your gut lining just gets destroyed. Because what's supposed to happen is, I shouldn't go so deep on this digestion stuff, but it's it's big.
Well, we're going to do a whole episode on gut health at some point.
We will. Right? Yeah. So what I'll just say quickly is, you end up with things like dysbiosis and stuff in your intestines, and basically like leaky gut. Yeah. And that's like a lot of times where you end up with those food sensitivities and allergies. Again, another thing that is being normalized and chopped up as just, I'm just allergic to these things, or I'm just sensitive to, well, okay, we shouldn't be though. Like we shouldn't have these issues with these foods. Some things I will say, like, I don't think our grains are good for anybody. Probably everybody has a gluten sensitivity because,
grains grown in the US for sure.
Yeah, it's garbage. So, but aside from that, and there's definitely foods that we shouldn't be eating. Well, I should say foods, in quotes, air quotes here. Things that aren't real food, we're not counting as here. But if we're talking about real food that we should be able to eat, we shouldn't be having sensitivities and allergies to those. That should not be normal. We shouldn't be having all these sensitivities and like allergies to things, that's
Right.
being so normalized, but it just shouldn't be. It's common.
It is. It's common, but it's not normal. And it goes back
Mm-mm.
to like, people having my dad for his whole life, well, most of his life, he thought he was allergic to chicken, right? Because he couldn't eat
Oh,
chicken, he would throw up every time. It wasn't until, gosh, I was a kid, I think it was, that they discovered he was actually allergic to the antibiotics that they used to give chickens. So I remember back when I was a kid, it was really uncommon to find natural chicken in the grocery stores. So we would have to go out to a farm and God knows where to find a turkey for Thanksgiving that wasn't hopped up, because it was chicken and turkey that wasn't hopped up on hormones and antibiotics, so that my
awesome.
dad could have Thanksgiving and eat turkey at Thanksgiving. So that's another thing, is like, you have to think about a lot of times people will say, oh, I have an egg, allergy or whatever.
Mhm.
Was it the egg that you're allergic to, or is it the crappy grocery store egg and all the stuff that they're feeding that poor chicken that it shouldn't be
Soy and
eating?
corn.
Soy and corn, which chickens shouldn't eat, and they're
Mm-mm.
feeding it, and that's giving you, it's changing their egg, and that's giving you the allergy, right? That's giving you the
Yep.
allergic reaction to it. So,
Oh man, so hard to
so
dig
much
into that
help.
too.
It is. It's really hard, but you have to be, if you people need to be willing to. If you really want to change your health, I feel like, think about it like, that doesn't seem normal. Why would I be allergic to chicken?
Yeah.
Like, it took so long for us to figure that out, that it wasn't the chicken.
How cool that you guys
It was
figured
the
that out
crap they
back
fed
then
it.
though.
What?
How cool that you figured that out back then,
Yeah.
that's very interesting. I have a good example of that from my GAPS group. The gal that runs the GAPS group that I'm in on Facebook, her daughter has something called FPIES.
Hmm.
So it's basically her daughter was allergic to food. And one of the main things that really shows up to her, and she's healing her through the GAPS diet,
Right.
but one thing that really shows up for her is she's basically allergic to corn. Well, corn's in like everything. I'm
Everything.
not even talking food. Like they use corn byproducts for, you know, coating on clothing
Yeah.
and furniture. And I mean, it's on plastics, it's everywhere.
It is.
And it's no wonder that a body would get sensitive to it, because we're being exposed to all these derivatives of corn all the time.
Mhm.
So
And
a
it typically is
sensitive kid like
GMO
that.
corn too, right?
Oh yeah,
Typically it's all
yeah,
GMO corn.
yeah. So she was having a hard time. She'll come across things where she's like, "What is going on? Why is she having a hard time with this or that?" And I think one time it was milk or something that she was giving her, and she was struggling with it, and she finally figured out that the cows or whatever were being given corn. And so, and that stuff shows up what they're being fed, like you just said, it shows up in the end product in the animal, whether it's an egg, the meat, the milk. If you're sensitive to things, you will have to go. If you're super sensitive, especially, you will have to go to that degree of like, okay, what is this animal being fed?
Right.
Because it's ending up in me now, you
Mhm.
know. So again, like really playing a detective, it can be hard for some of these super sensitive people.
Yeah.
But until you figure it out, you can continue to brush it off and just say I'm allergic, or you can decide that you deserve better and
Yeah.
figure it out.
And
And
one thing to do for that, just to interrupt you real quick, one thing to do
yeah.
for that kind of thing too is do the process of elimination,
Hmm.
right? So like an
Yep.
elimination diet is something that I feel like people, especially that are having gut issues, is get a
Yeah.
lot of that stuff out there and go back to nourishing, look up what nourishing and healing foods are, things that are going to heal your gut, cut all that stuff out. And then when you try to introduce it back in, make sure you're getting the best quality of that product. So don't just go to the grocery store and buy the regular eggs for $1.39 a dozen or $2 a dozen. You buy the
Yep.
pasture raised eggs that are $4 or $5 a dozen, right? We just found
Yep.
local eggs at our natural food store, like we passed by the natural grocers for
Yeah.
$4 per dozen, and they're, local pasture raised eggs, so when you
Awesome.
go to introduce those foods back in, make sure you're buying quality foods, because what could
Hmm.
happen is you could introduce that crappy egg in again, or you could introduce that hormone antibiotic filled chicken again, and it gives you a reaction and you're still like, yep, it's the chicken. It's like, well, do you know
Yep.
that for sure? Because you just introduced all of these other things with the chicken. You introduced hormones and antibiotics and all of the crap that they feed that animal, right?
Yep.
So make sure that when you do go to introduce it, you're introducing like the best quality food to really
Mhm.
know if something is giving you an issue. Because like we said, typically it's not the whole food that's giving you the issue. It's what that poor whole food is being fed. So
Yeah. And that's why I love the GAPS diet. The GAPS diet is effectively an elimination diet.
yep.
Um, so for those that are super sensitive out there, have terrible digestive issues and allergies and stuff like that, totally recommend doing GAPS. I always think of, I always forget her name too. Peterson. You
Oh,
always remember
Michaela Peterson.
Kelly Peterson. Yeah. So she ate like the same meat for, she was eating like lamb for 2 years or something.
Yeah, she had childhood rheumatoid arthritis, and it was a process of elimination for her. And finally, she cut the last vegetable out and just went to lamb, and that's what cured her RA and put it into remission.
Same thing
So
for the carnivore MD, Dr.
yep.
Paul Saladino. He wasn't giving up and he had tried, I think he was vegan for a while or
He was vegan
something.
for a while and was so sick, was super sick, and his skin was like eczema. He had like bleeding eczema, I think it was like just, and he was in his residency too during that time, and he was just so sick, ended up in the hospital on IVs and all that kind of stuff. And then he finally, I think he was just eating meat and one vegetable, I can't remember what it was, if it was lettuce or something, but he cut that last
Like it's kale or something.
yeah, kale, he cut that last one out, and it
His eczema
totally
cleared up everything. He
yeah
was totally
cleared up
good.
for him. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's another one too. Our skin is a great indicator. I feel like a lot of people, some people close to me have issues with eczema. And that is not something that's normal.
Yep.
I from my perspective on that is a lot of the skin issues, it's your skin reacting to toxins coming out through your skin.
Yeah.
So 100%, like you can do something about that, and it is not topical steroids.
No, that's once
Oh
again
gosh,
just
I
covering it
follow.
up, right? That's just putting a
Oh,
band-aid on it again.
it
It's
is.
typically all
I
good.
follow. I follow a group also on Facebook that is it's for people that have used. It's topical steroid. I forget what it is. It's like a topical steroid healing group.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so they stop using topical steroids. In some of the pictures, these people, I feel so bad for them because they've been covering up their eczema and dealing with it with topical steroids, and it stops working eventually, or
Oh
if
yeah.
it ever even did in the first place.
Yep.
So it stops, quote unquote, working. And so then they get off of this topical steroid and their skin just goes crazy healing from years of just basically, think of it this way, like if you're really upset about something, say you're mad at someone, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you never do anything, you never say anything about it, and you just bury it, eventually that comes out, right? It's the same thing for the toxins in your body. Like eventually it's going to come out.
Right.
It's just storing with these things until it can deal with it.
Yep.
And then you reach a point where it can't store any more toxins, and your body is going to do something about it. So it comes out in all these different ways.
Yeah.
And your skin is a really big one.
Yeah.
So you can't just keep going on putting like topical steroid creams on and think that it's going to cure it. It's just not. Your skin's trying to get something out.
Yeah.
Your body's trying to clear something out, and eventually it'll catch up, and it'll be a lot worse the later down the road than letting it do it now.
Well, and a lot of times people, they'll have to up the dose, the strength, and up the strength and up the strength. And it's like, that's just backwards, right? It's like, you shouldn't be having to up the strength to take care of this thing that is likely being caused by, what you're eating or how your gut is doing and whatnot. So I think
Again,
that's
get to the root, right?
Yep. Get to the root. That's a huge warning sign, is if the doctor's like, oh, you need to up your dosage on this. It's like, let's look at let's try to get to what the root cause of this is, this thing is. And
yeah. Do you really want to do this for the rest of your life? Or,
I think that's the hard part, is that I think that we've just made it so normal. I think, what did they say? Like 80% of Americans take at least 1 or 2 prescriptions now.
I believe it.
I think it's 80%.
I don't know the statistics.
Take at least 1 prescription. And we've just made it so common, it's like, we talked about it on the birth control episode, about depression, right? And like, that's
Mhm.
something that I've dealt with after getting on the pill. I got depressed, I was diagnosed with clinical depression, and it's something that I still deal with, but I refuse to take a medication for it, right? I refuse,
Thank
even
God.
like, just a little bit will make you feel so much better. It's like, no, I refuse to take a medication for it, because I know that there are things that I can do, and so
Mhm.
I'm trying to do everything that I can to really, work on it and fight it. And right now I'm like doing some detoxing stuff, which I'll also mention has really helped with my cramping, because that's another thing that we talked about as well was, you know, my heavy bleeding is I don't have that anymore, but I still had horrendous cramping. And since I've started doing this detox and getting some of those extra toxins out of my body, my cramping has lessened extremely, like has gone down so much to where, I don't need a heating pad 3 days in a row anymore. And so it's just getting that stuff out of your body and getting to that root cause, instead of just like being like, oh, I just have bad cramps, that's just who I am, and taking ibuprofen for it every month. I'm working to get all that junk that has built up out of in my body and get that out. And it is helping and it is working. So I think it's just trying to get people out of that mindset of, oh, this is just how I am, I'm just broken. It's like, no, you're not broken. You're born perfect. Our environment,
Mhm.
is making us broken. So,
Yeah. And originally we were going to do this episode kind of as a we were going to do
how to get in tune with your body,
yeah,
right?
how to get in tune with your body. And tuning into your body, you pay attention to these things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you need to listen to them. Now, to throw a wrench in this a little bit, um uh it can really screw with you because your body is always doing what it needs to, right? We have to start trusting our bodies that it is doing what it's supposed to be doing. And so ideally, you're going to support your body in what it's doing. Sometimes, as you're healing, you get a lot worse
Yep.
first. So that's where the real hard thing is learning and really getting in tune with your body and understanding when it's actually doing something and you're having these symptoms because you're actually healing, as
Right.
opposed to because you're having these symptoms because it's being caused by something really specific at kind of attacking you at that moment, right? And so recently, like my last period, I had sort of kind of bad cramps. I haven't had cramps for quite a while, but I was having cramps a little bit more this time around. And I was like, yay, which is kind of crazy. But to me, I was like, this means I also had kind of low energy and stuff. And I was kind of celebrating it because I knew that it was my body clearing something out. And I was
Mm-hmm.
feeling worse because I was clearing stuff out. But I knew on the other side of it, I was going to feel a lot better. So there's
Right.
this really weird gray, like, it's like I said, it's a total wrench in everything where you do need to kind of tune into your body and get to know sometimes as you're healing, it gets a lot worse.
Yeah.
Kind of like I
Not
was
all,
saying with the,
but sometimes. So just be prepared for that.
Mhm. And don't stop it. That's the hard thing is you don't want to stop these kind
Yes.
of symptoms because it is actually your body at work. So the more you can just support it.
Yep.
So if you know you're going through a purge, like do things to help support your detox. Take a detox bath. Make sure you rest if you're tired. Um, do make sure you're really taking care of yourself in those moments.
Right.
And then, when you come out on the other side, you're going to feel a lot better.
Right.
But if you are treating yourself like crap and the way you're feeling is reflecting it, then that's what you really want to pay attention to and try and correct.
Right. Well, and I think it goes to like the whole, to bounce off of what you're saying, the whole getting in tune with your bodies. I think part of the reason that especially women nowadays have a harder time with that is that we live in a society that is so fast paced, and we don't have time, or we don't take the time to slow down and really like slow down, like just
Yeah.
slow down and actually listen
Mhm.
and think about what's going on and compare how I felt last month to how I feel this month to how I feel for, how did I feel 2 months ago? And we just
Yep.
don't have the time, and we have to be willing to say, I'm going to put something on the back burner so that I can focus on myself and I can focus
Yep.
on this issue that I'm trying to correct, and
Mhm.
heal. and really listen to our bodies, because we've just bombarded women, especially, like I said, women especially, with so many things nowadays. It's just harder, and women are,
It
I
is.
don't have time to do that. Just give me something for it. I don't have time. It's like,
Yeah.
no, you need to take the time, because this is the only body that you get. This is, you don't get
Mhm.
another chance here. This is all you got. So we need to do the best to take care of it.
So true. And that's where I was just saying, like, I've been kind of tired. So I've like I slept like 10 hours last night or something. I knew I needed some extra sleep. And to allow yourself to do that, again, you really have to be kind of in tune with yourself to realize, you might sleep because you're being depressed or you might call yourself lazy. I don't encourage you to call yourself lazy, but
Yeah.
I think there's something deeper there than being lazy. Um, but if you are tired because you're overcoming something in that moment, like let yourself rest. Like your body is telling you, I need a break, and you need to listen to that,
Yep. What
and
are some
that's
other,
that balance, right?
oh, it totally is. What are some other
Mm-hmm.
ones? We touched on headaches, we touched on gut stuff, heartburn, reflux, we touched on a little bit on allergies. What are some other more common ones that you can think of?
Gosh, if there's anything making you uncomfortable, it's not normal. I'll just say that. Like,
It's
um,
not normal.
I'd say, oh gosh, crowded, like dental issues, right? Crowded teeth, cavities, yeah, all that
Gotta
stuff.
breathe through your nose.
Con- well, and even like things like congestion and things like that, all your sinuses and things like that, like that should all be clear. Yeah, your teeth are a huge deal. That is a big indicator of your health.
Mhm.
Cavities have again been kind of brushed off, and it gets everybody kind of think, and we've been taught that it's because you're not brushing your teeth well enough. How many people do you know that brush their teeth 2 times a day, floss, and still end up with cavities? Does that sound a
Right.
little broken to you? It's
Right.
not as simple. It's not about brushing your teeth and keeping your teeth cleaned. It is mineralizing your teeth. Do you get the nutrition that you need to support your bone structure?
Yeah.
Are you getting the minerals that you need? Are you getting vitamin D? Are you getting out in the sun? All these things are really, really important for your oral health, and it's a huge indicator. And I've been seeing a lot. Biological dentists that I follow and stuff, they talk about how the nerves in your teeth are connected to your brain and your whole body.
Yep.
There will be times like I'll have food kind of stuck in my tooth, and I'll get a headache from it. And like, I don't know how I figured that out. I just was like, oh man, my head hurt. Oh, let me floss my teeth really quick. And it was like
Yeah.
something was irritating my gums, right? And
Yep.
it made my head hurt. So things
Yep.
like that, like as you start connecting the things, our body is very, very interconnected. And the nerves in our teeth are connected to the rest of the body. And I think like one of the dentists out there basically says like your teeth is just an extension of your brain, basically, because
Yeah.
it's connected by the nerves. So things like oral health is another one that gets, I think, normalized that you need braces. That isn't
Wow.
normal. We
I
shouldn't.
was gonna recommend the book too while we're talking about dental health, the book Breathe. Um,
Mm,
it is fascinating. I'm reading it or listening to it on Audible the second time through, and it's
oh
just
yeah.
fascinating what he talks about. Um, sorry, it's my husband. As far he's just upstairs. Um,
Yeah.
as far as how we breathe, and we've become a society of mouth breathers, and how that is affecting the shape of our jaws, it's affecting our nose, it's affecting our eyes, it's affecting our jaw lines, it's affecting all of these things. And he
Hmm.
talks about how we've evolved over the years in the millennia and whatnot. And I
Hmm.
think about it all the time. He talks, I think it was a tribe, maybe, I can't remember exactly who it was, a tribe in
For
Africa or
sure.
something. He talks about how the moms will sit there, and anytime the baby's mouth opens to breathe, they'll close it so that they learn how to breathe through their nose. So because they
Mm,
know how important breathing through your nose is. And you should be able to run a long period of time without having to breathe through your mouth, right? But our nasal passages have gotten so much smaller than they used to be, and it really does
mhm.
affect your entire body, how we breathe. And like Jessica said, braces, like our jaws are not, our teeth are meant to be straight. right? But we have smaller mouths than we used to, and there's just so many things we could get into.
Yeah.
That
Hmm.
fascinates me,
Yeah.
the breathing.
The breathing thing's been a big movement lately. There's like I've considered trying the whole mouth taping thing. Have
Travis did
you?
it. My husband's best friend did it. He did the mouth taping
Yeah,
thing.
really. I'm
Yeah.
tempted to try it. Because yeah, and also I can't remember. Maybe I'm sure you'll remember. But there's um, by breathing through your nose, you actually take in a certain. It creates like a certain gas. What is it? It's like
I know what you're
uh,
talking about.
but it's like a nutrient that we basically
Sure.
create in our
Yep.
nasal passages.
Yeah. I mean, they talk
That's
about treating people with Alzheimer's, treating people with Parkinson's, just in changing how they breathe, right? People with major, major issues, that are caused by just how we breathe and, all that kind of stuff. So I don't
yeah,
know. We could do it. I'll do it. We could do a whole other show about breathing because I'm just
yeah.
so fascinated by how it really does affect us. But I mean, really
Hmm.
think about it. People have sleep apnea, and
Hmm.
it's all caused by how we breathe. And, people become such mouth breathers. And I see it in my son that he's kind of a mouth breather too. And his nose is definitely, he has a bigger nose, but it's like it's always stopped up. And so I'm always trying to just get him to like, just breathe through your nose more, close your mouth, breathe through your nose,
Hmm.
so that he can develop
Hmm.
it and it can change it. Because if you're changing from mouth breathing to nose breathing, it can change your life in matter of a few weeks if you're consistently
Hmm.
making sure you're breathing through your nose and not your mouth. So
Yeah, yeah, super important. A lot of information coming out about that right now. Um, and I want to say, like, all these kinds of things, like, you know, certain people, like, you get into biological dentists and stuff, and they get really, really hyper focused on breathing through your nose, right? But all of these things are connected. So all of these things are important,
yeah,
between, you might hear, oh, if you start grounding and earthing, like everything's going to get better. That's one piece, right?
yeah,
Get out in nature. Everything's going to feel better.
yeah.
For some people, they will start feeling so much better just by getting out in nature, but
Absolutely.
it's all of it.
It
We need
is.
to take all of these pieces and try and incorporate them as much as we can because they all function together.
They do.
And that's where it's like all getting back to how we are meant to be, getting back to what was real and not what we've manufactured in this modern world.
Well, and I want
That's
to
another thing. Go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, on top of that, remembering that everything in our bodies are connected. I feel like nowadays we have doctors for everything and they specialize in these different specific areas, but our entire body is connected. Our brain is
Hmm.
connected to our gut. That is like the most, basic
Hmm.
connection. And that is the biggest one. The gut brain connection is the biggest thing that we need to
Yeah.
focus on, and our blood is, it's just, nothing is separate. Everything
Right.
is connected. So you may have a gut issue that could be causing, like Jessica had said, some kind of, brain issue or depression or anxiety because of what's happening in your gut. So don't
Hmm.
think that what's going on up here has nothing to do with what's going on down here or here, right?
Hmm.
It's all connected. And so we need to make sure that we're really doing a full look at our health when we're thinking about, working on
Hmm.
curing things.
Yep, yep. And, I think about, I mentioned earthing and grounding and getting out in nature. It's a huge piece. And I think of things like, ADHD. That's another thing we haven't touched on in this conversation as
Oh
far
yeah.
as something that's becoming normalized.
Yep.
Things like ADHD or, the whole autism spectrum.
Yep.
It's becoming very, very common
Yes.
in kids, and that's a very scary thing. And we really have to look at that and go, why is this becoming so common? Because it's not normal. And there's a lot of factors in there.
Absolutely.
And part of it is, the overuse of devices and look, watching things on TV, not using creativity, not having enough activity out, movement and activity, not connecting with nature, not touching the earth and always being connected to electronics and things like that instead of grounded. And then the food that you're taking in and um, all of it all goes together.
Yep,
And so
it
these are
does.
things that, like, we really need to look at. These kids, they shouldn't it shouldn't be this way. Like the way
No.
that our kids are behaving and feeling and stuff.
And it shouldn't
They're
be,
not
and I'm
bad
trying to,
kids.
no, they're not bad kids. And we treat them like they are, right? We
Hmm.
treat in society, we treat these kids like there's something wrong with them and they're broken and they're not. You
Hmm.
know, we've done them a disservice.
Yeah.
And that was one thing I did want to say too, is that we need to stop looking at childhood. And I think you and I have talked about this before. We need to stop looking at childhood as an excuse to give them a bunch of crap, right? To give them sugar and to give them the cake and give them the
Ugh.
cookies. And it's okay if you eat, all of these YOLO, oh,
Mhm.
YOLO, they can have this YOLO. And I fucking hate, I'm sorry, said a bad word.
Do it.
I freaking hate that phrase because I used to feel, we talked about it in I think our last episode too, how I succumbed to peer pressure a lot. And there were many times where I've been in situations where my kids' friends were eating things that I did not want my kid to eat. And I didn't know how to say, no, I don't want them to eat that. And so I just
Yeah.
said, okay, okay. And I gave in, and I do
Mhm.
a lot better job now. And I have those discussions with my kids in advance of saying, hey, you can have this one thing at this party, but that's all you're going to get. Don't ask for another thing. If you do, the answer is going to be no, because our kids are growing and their brains are developing. And this is the time more than any time in their lives, between the ages of 0 and I think our brains are not fully developed until 25. So let's say 0 to 18 is what we can control, or even, I mean, I guess we can't always control what they eat at when they're teenagers at school, but like right now, when you and I have little kids that are under teenage years, this is when we can control what is going into their bodies, and that is feeding their brains and it's feeding their gut. And all of these kids that have all of these issues that are developing,
Mhm.
I see a lot of them just being fed garbage, and
Yeah.
people just don't know that what they're putting in their children's bodies is what is causing all of these issues, all the processed food and all the junk and all the candy and the sugar and the treats. And, you know, we need to be feeding them the most nutritious food possible, because that is what is going to grow their bodies into what they're meant to be and their brains into what it's meant to be. So it just breaks my heart when I just see little kids running around with bad food because they just, and they just don't know. The parents just don't know.
Mhm.
It's what our society has taught.
Yeah, it's a something that's been culturally normalized, right? Um,
Exactly.
and I've definitely had the experience of I think of a very specific experience of someone telling me basically, come on, let her be a kid, just let her, she's a kid, as if, being a kid equates to eating junk food. Why
Exactly.
does childhood equate to eating junk food? It should be exactly the opposite. These bodies are growing and developing and need all the nutrients in the world to be able to build a body.
Yep.
And they are growing so quickly, and if they're not getting that nutrition, aside from just developmentally, physically, what that does. But then on top of that, they're trying to learn, and we're getting, parents are getting frustrated and mad at their kids because they're misbehaving or, running around like crazy, wild child, and it's not their fault. It really isn't. Take take a quick look in the mirror and see, like, what is it that I am doing
Mm-hmm.
that might be creating this problem with my kid, and I don't want to get down on parents. I do think,
No,
again, a lot of it does come to ignorance and just cultural normalization of eating
absolutely.
junk, even just sporting events, it's the little kids, they have their sporting event. At the end of it, you always have a treat and a juice, right? And I had to be the weird parent that wouldn't let my daughter have the juice box and the treat. And
Yep.
I would bring her her own thing of fruit and, here's your water. Like, weird.
We
You just
brought,
drink water.
when we were treat parents, we bring jerky and water. Like that's what I brought, was jerky and water. And the kids were like, we love jerky. I'm like, oh, good. I didn't want to bring the weird parent that's bringing like the healthier treat, not the Rice Krispie treat, like trying to
Mhm.
be a little bit more health conscious with the kids. You get some beef jerky and some water. So it's like,
And I I feel it's kind of hard too, because I have had the experience of parents that do try to do a better job with those treats at the end of the sporting events.
Mhm.
And they still,
Oh,
like, for me, I'm like, you do know that Gatorade's still got a lot of crap in it, right? Like,
yeah.
and it's really, it's that education piece. And I hope that, that's why, again, we're doing this, but I hope more information gets out to everybody that some of these things that are marketed as healthy still
Mhm.
aren't healthy, and
Right.
that's such a hard thing to break
Well,
through.
and I used to be a victim of it. I used to be like, oh, this is healthier, or this has, third of the fat that this other thing
Mhm,
does. Oh, that's healthy because it has less fat. It's like, no, it just has more
mhm,
crap in it to make it taste good.
mhm,
And I totally used to, I'm still working on healing my kids from food. Like Audrey was a really picky eater and we didn't know any better. We were just like, we just have to give her protein. So we just give her chicken nuggets when she was little because we're like, just get her protein. She needs it. Just get her chicken nuggets. We'll get the natural, organic, antibiotic free ones, but let's just get her, And so I'm still feel like it's a process, like you said, and we're still working on healing them. And I think about
mhm.
a lot of kids that are fed a lot of things like fast food and other candy and stuff. And like sugar is so addicting, and
Yeah.
especially for kids, it's really going to affect them um,
Mhm,
at the brain level with the addiction with sugar and whatnot, because it's harder for them to control their brains. Their emotions are all over the place at that age,
mhm.
when they're young. And I just
That's
think,
another that's another big point too, is not only are we feeding them for their bodies to grow and develop and their brains to grow and develop, but also setting the foundation for how they're going to eat later in life, because it
right.
really is, these foods are addictive, literally. Like, your body gets addicted and your microbiome gets addicted and grows based off of, like, the sugar you're eating and things like that. And so to change their diet later can is probably not going to happen.
Yeah.
If the sooner you start, you're setting that foundation to have a healthy diet for that kid for their
Yeah.
whole life.
And I think you kind of mentioned it earlier. And I one question I always want to ask and pose on social media, and I kind of found a way to do it last week, I think, but is always like, okay, like you had said, childhood obesity is up, ADHD is up, asthma is up, allergies is up, autism is up. All of these things are things that we didn't ever deal with when we were kids. I don't even know if we had anybody in our school or in elementary school that had any kind of allergy, right? And there's maybe
Mhm.
one kid that had
Yeah.
ADD. No, I don't think we knew of any
Mhm.
autistic kids at our school. And
Diabetes.
diabetes, yeah,
Diabetes.
is
I
huge.
working at the school, there was like a handful of kids that had, diabetes, and they had people that actually had to be with them 20, like, the whole time at school, tracking their blood because it was that
Mhm.
serious. It's like, this shouldn't be happening.
Yeah. So we need to take a look at that and be like, wow, okay, all of these things continue to rise, right? All of these cases and these issues are continuing to rise. What are the common factors? What is causing it? It's like you said, the food that we're feeding them and all these other host of issues, environmental, we really need to take a look at like what is causing these issues and then work backwards to try to like get those things out of our home or detox from, things we've been exposed to and whatnot. But just assuming that, oh, kids just have allergies nowadays, or oh, asthma is just normal or eczema is just normal. It's like, it's not. It's really, really not. And we need to get to what the root cause is for our kids, because, we're just perpetuating the issues and it's just getting worse and worse. It's not normal. We've made it seem normal, but it's not.
Exactly. Yeah,
And I think we have to look back at that.
totally. Yeah.
A lot of people don't want to accept that, and they don't want to say like, oh, I've done something wrong, or I screwed up, or I made a mistake. It's like, it's okay. We all screw up. We've all made mistakes. It's like going back and now
Mhm.
trying to work on remedying
Yep.
that and making your future look a little bit better for your kids and us and whatnot. So we
Yep. Can't
touched on a
change the
few things.
past, but you can.
Learn from it.
Yep.
You can definitely learn from it.
Yep. Mhm. You can
So
learn from it and change, the future, the projection of your
absolutely.
future.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Was there any last ones that you think that we should touch on that have been normalized that are not normal?
Ugh. I'm sure there's more.
I'm sure somebody would be
I
like, touch
mean,
on this.
it's
And then we didn't, but
you're right. I mean, I just want to say like pretty much everything. If you're not if there's something suboptimal in your life, like there's probably something you can do about it. I'm talking even down to your vision, your um your joints, pain, clicking in your joints, muscles twitching, strange sensations. Oh, here's a good story for you. I watched or listened to the Del Bigtree the High Wire
oh yeah.
episode.
Well, yeah,
Did
yesterday.
you listen to that whole thing?
Yes, I finally finished it.
Um,
But he was
yeah, so
talking
he
about
had
why he
his
ended up in
health
the
issue.
ER. Yeah.
Yeah, he ended up in the ER because he kept ignoring the fact that he had hemorrhoids.
Internal hemorrhoids. Yep.
Yeah, and so he was losing blood. Well, so hemorrhoids generally are associated with like liver issues. So if your liver's backed up, like you end up with like vascular issues. So
Mhm.
it's associated with liver high liver burden.
Yeah.
And so he just had ignored it for a long time and been living a very high stress life, and it caught up to him, and he ended up he was losing blood and had to get a bunch of blood
Yeah.
transfusions
Like 4 or
because of
5 blood
hemorrhoids.
transfusions. Yep.
So these things, I mean, I think of a lot of people, I think just deal with things like constipation.
Yeah.
That's the thing that's been a big issue in my family is constipation, my life, my daughter, some other people I know, a lot of people. I feel like, you go in the grocery store and all the like shelves for laxatives and things like that are empty because people are having constipation. Constipation is a big issue. If you
Yep.
are not having regular bowel movements, all the toxins in your body and stuff are just getting recycled. You're not able to clear those things out. So you end up very toxic. Um, you in things like, my mom has had, because of her constipation issues, she's had things like diverticulitis and stuff. And so these are things that can occur. Sorry, mom, if I'm sharing your business too much, um uh but these are health issues that can come up um from things like something that people brush off again, I think, as just, and I did for a long time. I was having terrible issues with constipation in like my late teens, early 20s. And then and it carried on through my 20s until I changed my diet, and it's better now, but it was bad. And it's something I think that's really easy to just be like, oh, it's just tough to have a bowel movement, or I only go once every 4 or 5 days. And it's like, that's a problem, you
Yeah.
know.
Well, and I
um,
think brushing it off and just dealing with it, and then it just gets worse and worse and worse. And it's that bucket analogy until it spills over, and then you get diagnosed with something severe, right? You're like, oh, I didn't address this issue when it was down here, and now it's here, and now it's even worse. And then it's just going to take you that much longer to get back to where you should be, to normal, what is actually
yeah,
truly normal and healthy for your body. So it's like, it may not seem like a big deal. It may just seem like a minor issue, having a headache, but really try to think about, I wonder what could be causing that, and try to get to what the root cause could be, because it's just going to get you to the point where, your bucket's
you have
going
a
to
health
fill
crisis.
over and you have a health crisis. Yep.
Yeah,
That could be
that's another one
serious
too.
too.
I think is becoming more common, and is a really scary one as well, is fertility issues. I know you kind of
Crazy.
struggled with this as well.
Yeah,
um,
because of
and I,
PCOS,
I
but
have
I'm working on
several
fixing it.
Yeah, I have several people that I've known that have had challenges getting pregnant. And, the again, the medical world does what it knows to do, which is work around. So you're doing in vitro, you're getting injections of things and whatnot. Well, we should be able to have, if we're of childbearing age, we should be able to get pregnant.
Yep.
So if you're struggling with that, that is an indication. So what will happen is your body prioritizes, right? And its number one priority is survival. So procreating is a secondary need to survival, right? So if
Mhm.
you are not healthy enough If your body has to just be in survival mode, it's not going to be able to reproduce because it's not a priority. The priority is to keep you alive.
Right.
And so that's another big one. If you're having a hard time getting pregnant or with fertility issues, that is a big indication of something much greater going on in your body that you need to seek help with finding balance and filling any deficiencies you have and balancing your hormones and things like that.
Well, that too. And there's a doctor who wrote a book. I don't know when she wrote the book. It was a few years ago, but her name is Dr. Shauna Swan. And her book is called Countdown. And basically she's an environmental epidemiologist. And her book talks about how our environment and especially plastics and chemicals in plastics are affecting sperm count in men. So everything from, and this made me worry about Emmett, because my son was in the NICU for 5 days. So everything from even the NICU tubes that they use for babies to feed them and that sort of thing is plastic, right? So her book talks about, and they've done studies, she did a lot of studies on how sperm count in the last 40 years in men has dropped by nearly 50% because of our environment and plastics and the toxins we're exposed to. So that is another huge thing to really be
huge.
To think about too, is, with our sons and daughters and stuff, thinking about what they're being exposed to as far as plastics and environmental toxins and how that could affect
or the water,
sperm count.
The water too, if you're drinking tap water and stuff, it can go back to the birth control conversation here, but the hormones from our hormonal birth control ending up in our waterways, and they're finding estrogen and stuff in water, and if the men are drinking that, it's going to affect their hormone levels.
It's affecting the fish. It's affecting fish in rivers. There's fish now that are being born with male and female genes and body parts and stuff. So all of this crap getting into our water is affecting our sea life.
Exactly. Yep.
Right.
So any final thoughts from you?
No, I always want people to feel, understand that, like, we are here to support you, and we're doing this because we want to be able to share our journeys with people and share what we've learned, share how we've been able to make changes in our lives to better our health and that of our kids. And it's a constant journey. Like, it's a constant journey that is never ending. So I don't want people to ever feel like it's too late for me. Like, no. I'm already taking this prescription drug. I'm going to be taking it for the rest of my life for whatever issue, or, I'm overweight or I'm obese. I'm just going to be like that for the rest of my life. That's just who I am. Even if you don't feel good, if you feel great and happy and good and you feel amazing in the body that you're in, then awesome. But if you feel terrible and you have gut issues and joint issues and all of these health issues, that is what we want to be able to, like, help you understand, like, there's something going on. It's not normal. We want you to be able to find somebody to work with to get to the root cause of these issues.
Yep. Yeah. There's this hopefully is empowering for you to realize that you have a lot more control than you might be led to believe, and that you don't have to succumb to being on medications for the rest of your life.
Yep. And if you want help, like, reach out to Jessica or I, and we can definitely put you in touch with the right people, put you in touch. If you reach out to me, I can put you in touch with Jessica, because there are people that are out there that will help you really get to the root cause. And there's some resources that we have that can definitely help you out. So
for sure. Yep.
Awesome.
Well,
thanks for joining us. Like we said earlier in the episode, please like this podcast, like our podcast, subscribe, share, leave us a review. We're still working on getting out to more people since it's such a new podcast. You can find me on social media over on Instagram at tiffany.hubner, and you can find Jessica
on Instagram. I am Real Food Revolutionary.
Hey.
Yeah.
And what's your website?
I did it right. My website is realishrevolution.com.
realishrevolution.com. And my website is afitmomslifeblog.com. And yeah, that's all we got. We hope you guys have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you later. Bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye.